I'm Louise and here's what happened in Taiwan this week. The government's aiming to better prepare the country to respond to natural disasters or a Chinese invasion. Louise went along to find out more about the program aiming to unite the military and civil society.
National defense goes beyond the military. It's also the responsibility of civil society and every civilian in it. That's the message being hammered home by the government at this press conference in Taipei. A cross-section of legislators and civil society leaders have come to lend their support as Taiwan's Vice President Bi Khim-hsiao announces the formation of the Taiwan Parliamentary All-Out Defense Committee.
那台湾除了应对很多因为气候变迁所带来的天然灾害环境的影响之外，地缘政治的挑战更是在我们的眼前。所以立法院在这个时候继续的就过去所成立的全民防卫连线持续的扩大，跟民间团体我们所有的社会力的连结，在这个关键的时间点更为重要。
A project 2 years in the making, the committee plans to strengthen relationships between public and private sectors and the general public to better prepare Taiwan in the event of a catastrophe, be it natural or military. The committee's campaign will include better education for citizens, expanding the powers of civil society, providing more resources for disaster response, improving medical networks, and reinforcing digital, energy, transportation, and financial infrastructure. The committee aims to bring together experts from across the country, including from agriculture, tech, commerce, and the military, and form a more collaborative, nationwide mechanism to disaster response. In the face of increasing aggression from China, Taiwan is taking every preventative measure it can to give itself the best chance of surviving the worst-case scenario. Ryan Wu and Louise in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
On the 20th anniversary of the Indigenous Turoko people gaining official recognition, one community elder has published a book he hopes can serve as a reference for future generations. Louise has the story.
86-year-old Huang Changxing has been on a mission to document centuries of indigenous history. He has spent 10 years investigating the migration paths of Telugu communities in northeastern Taiwan. In April, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake hit the region, damaging much of the area's infrastructure and isolating remote mountain communities. But since then, Huang has resumed his trips into the mountains, leading groups of indigenous Telugu youths on expeditions to retrace hunting trails their ancestors left behind.
我是现地花10年的时间，发动了180多个人，在这里一个部落一个部落去查，而且所有的部落也好，生活基点也好，都有精确的 GPS 的那个记录。
Huang comes from the Wenlan group in Sholing Township. He says he's always felt a sense of responsibility to his community. He compiled 10 years of his survey data into his book, so future generations can draw from his work. And his efforts have not gone unnoticed by his fellow community members.
以岁月心血踏勘本乡境内有192处，万荣乡境内有124处的旧部落的生活据点，精要的 整理了太鲁阁族所有的一个迁移的一个历史。
Telugu people were once classified as part of the Dayan indigenous ethnic group, but 20 years ago the community successfully campaigned to have the government recognize them as one of Taiwan's distinct indigenous peoples. And Huang's book continues the work of advocating for and preserving the Telugu identity.
怎么样把自己的生活世界重新找回来？因为我们的民族不是一个名称而已。 是它的内容，是我们的生活世界怎么样重新找回来，我们的祭典，我们的语言，我们的这个所有的这些生活的领域。
Huang's book explores traditional Telugu hunting practices and recounts the community's resistance to Japanese colonization. He says his work could be used as a textbook. More than that, he hopes it will make it easier for future generations of Telugu youth to connect with their roots and take pride in their heritage. James Lin and Louise for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese boxer Yu-Ting has been appointed the country's anti-bullying ambassador. The Olympic gold medalist was at the centre of a gender dispute at this year's Paris Games. The controversy triggered heated online debate and abuse. Lin says she hopes people will learn from her experience that bullying is wrong. Taiwan's tallest trees are disappearing, and the country's scientists want to know why. Rick Glauert travelled to the forests of Taiwan's central mountain range to meet a team hoping to save Taiwan's giant trees.
It might look precarious, but this is where Rebecca Xu feels most at home. At the top of a 67-metre high fir in Taiwan's central mountain range, she's collecting measurements from a weather station. She affectionately calls this tree Great White and hopes this data will help answer a question that has long been troubling her. Why are giant trees like this one disappearing in Taiwan?
可能100年后就已经没有剧目了，对，就是有点过于快速，对，所以我们想要知道为什么嘛？
就估计它的长度跟那个直径。
Xu has dedicated her career to finding and cataloguing the country's tallest trees, using radar imagery, drones, and manually measuring the trees herself. Taiwan is one of just a handful of places around the world with the right environment for trees to grow this tall. The mountainsides here were once covered in hundreds and thousands of firs and cypresses growing to heights of more than 65 metres. But after decades of logging, less than 1,000 remain. These rare primeval giants no longer face the threat of being cut down for timber. It's been illegal here for more than 30 years. But in the last decade, 4% of the 941 trees Xu and her team catalogued have died. And she suspects it has to do with climate change.
有可能是因为近年来那个极端气候造成那个暴雨，对啊，然后因为很多都是崩塌地。
Their loss will signal a decline in the health of Taiwan's forests, which cover more than half of the country and are vital to local ecosystems.
Forests are less healthier, and they are not biodiverse enough. Then overall, they increase the odds for forest fire.
As the world struggles to reduce carbon emissions and rising global temperatures, trees like this are vital, absorbing damaging carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
我觉得是我们给他照顾，我觉得是他们在照顾我们，对我们没有办法照顾他们，因为他们这几千年来都是他们自己生存的啊。
In the last few months, deadly earthquakes and typhoons have racked Taiwan, but Great White is still standing tall, and Xu is relieved to find signs of new growth in its highest branches. Xu says trees like this are incredibly resilient, and that given time, they can adapt to a changing environment. But, she warns, the globe is warming too quickly, and she now suspects that she will outlive this ancient giant. Leon Lien, Peachy Chuang and Rick Glauert in Hsinchu County for TaiwanPlus.
Sustainability might not be the first word that comes to mind when you think about the theatre. Given the often temporary nature of many productions, they can generate lots of waste and consume a lot of energy. Louise meets the people working towards a greener approach to performance art.
A post-apocalyptic future, piled with trash and polluted by plastic. It's a bleak image brought to life on stage by Performosa Theatre in their production Future World Hypothesis at the famous Cloudgate Theatre in New Taipei.
We will try to imagine after 300 years later what kind of landscape of we will live. So I think everyone can imagine that a lot of junk or a lot of something that couldn't digest by the sea.
More than an atmospheric story about humanity's fight for survival, the play reminds audiences of the impact people are having on the planet. The sustainability theme runs deep through the production. even to how it was put together.
Probably 95% of the materials that I use are sourced, collected plastic bottles, PET bottles, which have been transformed into these marine-looking creatures. We basically try to avoid buying new materials.
Some smaller grassroots efforts are also putting sustainability at the core of their practices. Theatre Naturally Connected, a production company based in Hsinchu in northern Taiwan, try to be waste-conscious in everything they do, sometimes by leaning into styles of theatre that were born from a lack of resources.
In Poland, we have a famous director, Grotowski, and he was a founder of the poor theater method. The actor that can create everything from his imagination and this inner landscape that it's created in his mind, and the rhythm of the body can make a music, and so it's really the less the better.
The move towards sustainable theatre practices has gained traction in recent years, becoming an international collaborative mission, with Taiwan playing a key role. A symposium on diversity and sustainability in the arts is being held here at the Kaohsiung National Center for the Arts, the biggest such venue in the world, and a building designed with sustainability in mind. It's a joint effort by Taiwan's Culture Ministry and the International Organization of Scenographers, Theatre Architects and Technicians, or OASTAT, an NGO building a global network for people in theatre production, as they agree to stay headquartered in Taiwan for another 5 years.
We are hoping to bring awareness from all the international community that this is the moment, this is the year we need to really look into the possibility of bringing sustainability thinking into theater design.
At the event, conversations about how many small changes to industry practices come together to make a big difference in the environmental impact of a production.
You can't do everything all at once. Choose the easiest, most simple sort of action for you, whether that is changing out your electrical equipment for more sustainable electrical equipment, whether that is considering the paint that you use for your set design.
Every aspect of a piece of theatre or a concert can be examined and tweaked to reduce its energy costs, including using recycled materials to build sets, more energy-efficient stage lights, or finding new ways to repurpose existing props and costumes.
You could maybe take parts of a garment and modify and make a new costume. Or you could upcycle, which means taking, for example, 2 garments and changing them in such a way that you would make a third one, a new one.
Though they admit taking a more sustainable approach to performance design can introduce new challenges.
There is a worry that when you start adopting sustainable practices, that might reduce your creativity.
But as creatives, many in the industry are up for the challenge.
I think theatre companies and theatre makers are often thinking about sort of the cutting edge or what's coming next, whether that is within their community, whether that's in the arts or technology. So they tend to be kind of on the forefront of these sort of global issues, and sustainability is one of those as well.
Theatre has long been a medium that tackles the most pressing issues in society. Now, as the world grapples with an increasingly polluted planet, the theatre industry is reconsidering the role it could play in reducing its impact on the environment. Justin Wu, Alex Chen and Reese Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us today for Here's What Happened. Do download our app to see more of our reports. Finally, we'll play out with some images of how Taiwan marked the official end of Ghost Month. I'm Louise Watt. Take care. We'll see you next week.